Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Mastermind podcast. Today we're talking about micromanaging versus empowerment and what's the difference between the two and which may serve you best. Stay tuned. Steve Jobs said, "It doesn't make sense to hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do." It's a pretty smart statement right there. So when we start talking about management versus empowerment, micromanagement versus empowerment, we have to realize that there is a little bit of a battle there, and there really shouldn't be, because micromanagement should not exist anymore. Empowerment is absolutely the way to go with getting your employees buy-in, getting long-term employees, because employees that feel empowered and see a chance to rise in the hierarchy of the company are much more likely to stay with you. So what you need to do is stop being a boss and start empowering your team. Let's start with what micromanagement is. Micromanagement is basically being a control freak. So it's holding authority and attention to detail over your team above anything else. So you're watching and observing and controlling everything that employee does. And what that really says to that employee is, he or she does not trust me. And it's the absolute opposite of what empowerment should be. So that lack of trust might have come from things that happened in the past with this team. It may have come with the fact that when you hired this person, they didn't have all the skills that you needed them to have. But you need to teach those skills. And then after you teach those skills, you have to empower that person to go and use those skills. Otherwise, through micromanagement, you build a feeling in your team that someone is superior to them. Oftentimes, you are superior to them, and that they are not capable, or you do not feel they are capable of working on their own. So the benefits of micromanagement are few, because you're going to lose your team. They are typically not going to perform at as high a level as you would like them to, or as they are capable of. So when you make all the decisions, everything that team does comes from your brain. As I said in a post recently, and I don't know who to attribute the quote to, but iron sharpens iron. So does a person sharpens another. And that's what you start to get when you empower your staff, is that, yes, through empowerment, you are going to get more mistakes, and you may not get the decisions made exactly that you would make, but let's face it, none of us know everything. And by empowering our staff and our team, we can start to get different points of view that will eventually take us to a much higher level than one micromanager running the whole team would attain. So let's consider what empowering your team can do. So through empowerment, you are going to enable that individual to actually control the work they are doing. We're going to give them the power, the authorization, if you will, to make decisions about how to get something done. Within the fixed operations world, this may be attributed to allowing an advisor to make a decision about whether something should be put to service policy. It may give the advisor a chance to change a sale amount to either meet an estimate or to help a customer that they feel needs to be helped. Now, those things for a lot of service managers and service directors are going to be a little bit scary. But if you are watching those things, not micromanaging, but watching those metrics, and you can find things that were handled in a way that you would not have, then you found yourself a teachable moment. And so now you can take your advisor aside and say, what happened with Mrs. Smith? What was your reasoning for lowering this amount? Or what was your reasoning for putting this oil change to policy? And let them explain it to you. And then, through empowerment and through trust with that individual, you can then have a conversation with them and explain to them how you would have handled it. Or maybe after their explanation, you totally agree with the decision. Even better. But if not, you go and you explain how you would have handled that and why, the reasons why you would handle it that way, and then send them back empowered still to make those decisions. So they have not been chastised or belittled or written up for something. That can be a teachable moment instead. So rather than a negative, we've turned that into a positive. So when employees are empowered, the other thing that happens is they don't need to wait for our direction or our approval on something that they need to do for a customer. And that, for me, is always the vein in which we're looking at this. Do what's right for your customer. So that has a double-edged sword in a good way. From the employee side, or let's go from the customer side. The customer side, there was a decision made quickly. They didn't have to jump through hoops. They didn't have to wait 20 minutes. They didn't have to ask to talk to a manager. They didn't need to do any of that stuff. And from the employee side, they feel trusted, which then raises their morale and raises their interest in that job and wanting to learn more and wanting to do more. So, wrapping up, micromanagement versus empowerment. So, obviously, in business, we do need to have control over what's going on. But we also need to make sure that we are trusting our employees, because without that trust, you truly do not have a department there. If you can't trust your team, then you have the wrong team, or you are the wrong person for that team. So when we have micromanagement, trust is at the center of that, just as trust is at the center of our relationship with our customers. So when we build on trust, we don't need to micromanagement, because that's going to kill the trust in the team. And empowerment actually helps to build that culture of trust. And it starts to energize your people, and it energizes a culture within the dealership. So how does that impact our processes? So obviously, there are times when you are going to have to get involved in the process. You are going to have to kind of look over what's going on, depending on what it is. Let's say you've got a recall that requires some very specific steps to be followed, then at least in the beginning, you probably need to micromanage that a little bit to make sure everybody understands what needs to get done so that the recall is done properly. And there obviously could be serious issues faced if a recall is not done properly. A safety issue could end up being more of a safety issue for a customer, or it could just be a chargeback issue with the dealership. So employees always making their own decisions can obviously help to optimize what they do, which at times you will need to micromanage on tasks, like I said. But there are also times when employees being empowered, they make decisions that will actually help them perform their jobs better. And through that, they will create better processes that are more efficient, right? Because empowerment is going to help them want to be more innovative in their job. So on profit, when we are empowering our people on profit, we can be micromanager and focus on every single little number. And that takes a lot of time to just focus on all the numbers. I'm not saying that you don't look at your numbers. Obviously, as the manager or director of that department, you need to know the numbers, but you do not need to micromanage on the numbers. Take the numbers, take the high-level view of them, and break them down so that you can teach your employees how to also look at these numbers, teach them what affects those numbers. You'll find a lot of times both your technicians don't understand productivity and efficiency, and your advisors don't understand an effective labor rate. They don't understand a gross profit, and that can create in itself an issue. So make sure that you are teaching your team everything that they need to know to be empowered. So impacts on profit for empowerment also are lower employee turnover, because they do feel empowered and they feel trusted to make decisions. That makes them stay longer with your company, which is obviously a great thing to have. So that's some of the things that micromanaging focuses on, not micromanaging, that empowerment focuses on. And so what you need to do to be a very effective empowerment leader is delegate. And delegate's one of those things that I see a lot of leaders fail on. They may not call themselves a micromanager, but they also may have the point of view that if I want something done well, I have to do it myself. That's not the truth. You need to delegate, and you will be amazed when you trust your team, when you have taught your team well, and then you trust your team to go out and execute what you have taught them. Delegating becomes a powerful, powerful tool, and that will allow you to go and do other important things to help propel that team forward even faster. You'll find your team will find efficient and strategic ways of doing things that you would have never found in your micromanagement. So, in conclusion, Theodore Roosevelt said, "The best executive is the one who has sense enough to pick good men to do what he wants done, and self-restraint enough to keep from meddling with them while they do it." Wise words we started with, wise words we ended with. Thank you again for joining this solo episode of the Fixed Ops Mastermind podcast. Please remember to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It helps us to get this podcast out to more people. Leave us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate it. And also subscribe to the podcast. Until our next episode and our next exciting guest, take care. Thanks for joining.